Welcome everyone. This is the Earth Sciences and Paleobiology interest group of TDWG. This is our second of two sessions that are covering the same information. So totally cool that you're at the second one because you will probably get a better overview than we did the first time. I'm Holly Little. I'm the informatics manager at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, and I'm a co-convener of this group with Ben. Do you want to introduce yourself? I forgot to do that yesterday.
So my name is Ben Norton, and I'm at Yale, and I'm co-convener of this group and several other TDWG activities and things like this.
Cool. And then this interest group, which we'll go over more details of in a bit, has a pretty wide variety of membership and participation, but there's a few core members, including Erica and Talia, who are here and very active with the work that we're doing. Okay, do you want to share the slides or would you like me to do it today?
I got it.
Thank you.
Here we go. Awesome.
This is the information we already shared. Can you go to the next one, please? So we're just going to do a brief overview, very brief overview of ESP, the objectives and how you can participate. Ben's going to talk a little bit about the main active task group of ESP. We will open up the floor to some updates if you want to share anything about parallel efforts, other groups that are doing related things. I have a couple that I'll go over. And then we do have one proposed activity that we want to share with all of you that we'd like feedback on and to run through ESP to incorporate into some of the TDWG Darwin Core Standard documentation. Next, please. It doesn't matter to me, but there's a clock on the screen.
Oh, sorry. That's mine.
Okay.
That's my clock.
It's counting down, which is making me feel a little bit funny about it. Okay, overview of ESP. So this is a pretty formal interest group of TDWG. For the most part, we act as a coordinating body for sharing work from across the Earth Sciences and Paleo data community. Quite often these meetings are those report out, so we'll do in a minute of parallel efforts, just so that as we work across the globe, we have opportunities to know what's going on in different spheres of work in different regions. We do also aim to help facilitate and expand the implementation and applicability of TDWG standards for Earth Sciences and Paleobiology. If you hadn't noticed, most of the work is very driven by the extant bio community, and we are often advocating for including more Earth Sciences and Paleo and things. And you can see that a lot in some of the changes to Darwin Core. We also are aiming to improve documentation and providing examples as part of that efforts to incorporate Earth Sciences and Paleo more in the work that's happening across the TDWG community. We have the main Earth Sciences and Paleo interest group, which is what this meeting is. There's one quite active task group, which is the mineralogy extension that Ben will talk about. And then there's previously been two other task groups, but they're not as active, if active at all, with the chronometric age extension and the ABCD extension for geosciences. Next slide, please. So if you want to get involved and you aren't already, this is a good time for me to remember to share the notes document. We do have a distribution list that isn't used super regularly, but it's an option to use if needed to share information. If you want to add your name to the participants in the notes document with your email, we can add you to that distribution list. We do have meetings periodically. And we also have an Earth Science and Paleo channel in the TDWG Slack space. There's a GitHub that's not very active, but it is a good space for putting issues if something comes up that we want to try to address. There's a lot of legacy issues there that we are kind of cleaning up now that are really about the Darwin Core implementation. And we're working on a document that will address some of those as part of another project that we'll talk about in a bit. Or you can join some of these parallel efforts that we will share about today. because they all link together, hopefully, in the work that we're trying to do. Anybody have questions, thoughts, ideas for the interest group generally? Ooh, thanks, John. That's helpful. So John put in the chat an update about the chronometric age task group. It's still nice to know that it was part of this interest group, so we will keep it on the slide.
I guess I'm up. All right.
Yep.
Okay, so the mineralogy extension. We are getting toward we're in the proposal phase. So we developed the terms. We had a part of the mineralogy extension task group has done is trying to bring the earth sciences community more into TDWG, especially mineralogists and geologists. I mean, paleontologists are there, but we need to reach into the other community. And so that's been part of the underlying sort of goal through the whole process. And so we developed our terms as a group, and then we had a community review. So we grabbed some mineralogists that helped us do, I think, about 8 that reviewed the terms just to see where we were coming from. We also did a survey about what the data looks like in mineralogy. It's a lot of comment fields. There's some work to go. There really are. It's interesting. Every time I interact with them, especially I do a lot of work with folks in Europe, and it always begins, okay, what is Darwin Core? Like they're brand new to the community, which is great. And so we got through that, and now we're at a phase where we're slowly releasing over probably 3 review cycles of Darwin Core a set of terms. So we had, I think, 12 from the last review that's about to be released. We'll have a few more and finish up at the end of the following cycle. Try to get them all out there. And the reason is because mineralogy terms aren't just like a traditional extension where you have this one-to-many with an occurrence record. There's a mix. So we have new Darwin Core terms like place name and hazard type, things like that. We have things in a traditional extension, like the compound model where you have one object, many parts. We have one new chronometric age proposal term. And there are also a set of vocabularies we're releasing to accompany the terms, not as a restriction, but we really wanted to say, hey, releasing this term, if you need like we have a vocabulary for hazard type. If you would like one, but we recommend this one. This was also created by the same group that created the term. And so it's just meant to be and share with the community and help things move along, and it's not restrictive at all. And then there's a new mechanism called the assertions, which I forgot to mention yesterday. So in our terms, these are all of them. These, we have verbatim size, measured width, height, depth, measured mass in grams. Here's the thing. So these are 19 assertions that are super, important for mineralogy, but only mineralogy. And some of them have been filtered out, like luster, cleavage, exsolution, texture, twinning law. And so we don't necessarily think it's wise to put them in a proposal as 19 new Darwin Core terms. That just doesn't make sense to us. And so there's this new concept in Darwin Core DP of material assertions. And so what we're trying to do is figure out a way where we can offer this schema to people so they can reuse these terms without having full-blown Darwin Core terms to overcomplicate things. So we can, serve this particular community, but not drag in the rest of everybody else for terms that really only apply to mineralogy. And so, but we're working through some of these details. A few things have been added. Mass was added for mids. It's a really important term, but most of these luminescence, inclusions, luster, cleavage, these are really mineralogy, specific things. So, all right, so there's that. Then, so that's the status. You can, in the GitHub repository for mineralogy, you can see I've got a list of terms that have gone through. So proposal, here are the new terms. So as we're going along, we're putting these proposals in, and then I'll put them in the table here, and you'll see how they're sort of moving along. And once they're accepted, they'll go in and how these things are sort of tracking through, so we can keep track. Especially important for the group too. So to know things are moving forward, because it took us a little while longer than we thought. Okay, awesome. So view by tab. Okay, that's great. So awesome. So the exec committee needs to review the ratification and the changes and additions proposed in this. Okay, so we're not there yet. They went through, they got accepted and everything, but the exec committee needs to do the final analysis. It's part of the TDWG process. So there's that. And one other mention while I'm on it. At this year's TDWG, there is a session just for Earth Sciences data, which includes paleo. And so if you have an abstract, It's open. We're happy to, accept abstracts and bring you along and have you, present in the session. We hope to fill it out. There's also a session on digitizing mineralogy data, which I'll talk about later with the portals and news like that. But the main one here is just it's just solely for earth sciences. So it's good news. So I will stop there. Let's go back to the presentation. If you have any questions, John.
Um, I don't know if it's a point of discussion, but something that would be interesting to talk to you about at least would be that material assertion stuff, because I find it interesting that what you have portrayed there as properties, who could contain values,
Right.
itself could be a controlled vocabulary for types of assertions
Yeah.
for mineralogy,
It could.
which is
Absolutely.
interesting.
It absolutely could. And I've tried to think of this through, but the mechanism by which to provide the community in sort of machine actionable way, right? That vocabulary, how that integrates into Armor Core DP is, I think, the pivot point that we ought to talk about at some point. And
Yeah.
the nice thing is that they've been reviewed by the group, like they were all consensus, put together, and so it's also a well
Mhm.
curated set of terms too, right? So that's good. So Holly, you want to take it back? Thanks, John.
Yes. Thanks, Ben. Um, so this is the section where anyone's welcome to share about related efforts. This list is just an example of groups that we've talked with in the past, so nobody has to share anything, although we are going to talk a little bit about two of them next, and you can think about if you want to share anything while we go through the next two things. And then we'll pause for more. So next slide, please. Yep.
Sure.
Thank you. Erica, did you want to do it or you want me
Yeah,
to?
no, I can. One parallel effort is in the US, mostly the US. We have a Paleo Data Working Group, which is a community of practice that's been meeting every other week for the past 6 years or so, and interacting kind of even longer than that. And this is really like it's a group of collections managers primarily working in paleo collections. And it's knowledge sharing. We figure out problems, we share information, and we kind of like act as a unit to engage with then the broader community like ESP or Tadwig more generally. I think next slide. At the end of okay. Well, so here's a slightly prettier slide to say the same thing. Um, we also have an active Slack space, and then we've got some kind of shared digital tools like a Google Drive, and we have a website that's on here that acts as like a more outward facing knowledge hub or like a place for us to put the products of our consensus. So that's paleo/data.github.io.
And I'll say this, I said this yesterday. This is a great group. If you're not a member of it and you want to just tag along, they really are. Like it's a model for like these sort of grassroots efforts that put together everybody, talks about important things, goes through stuff. As a personal note, I have brought stuff to them and everybody's listened to me ramble on about models and things like this, give me feedback. They're great. And so it meets bi-weekly and it's on the Slack channel and it's really a great group.
And the Slack, we recently, because of bots, moved to like you need to ask to be invited. So if you would like to be invited in the Slack, you could just send us a message. And by us, I mean mostly Holly, Talia, and I. You could just put a message in the chat here or note that in the shared notes for this meeting. We also have a listserv. It's a Google group. We mostly use it to announce the topics for the happy hour meetings. Next slide. And Talia, are you going to talk about this?
Yeah, I can talk about this. So based on a lot of the work that we've been doing in the Paleo Data Working Group, Holly, Erica, Lindsay Walker, and I, and a few others saw a need to have some funding to address some of the problems that had come up in that working group. And we applied for this grant through NSF's Geocyber Infrastructure Division and this open science ecosystem. funding line that they had. And we are in the sort of end phase of this project. And this project really focuses on kind of exploring where the pain points are for paleo data, from sharing data to discoverability of data. So kind of the full data life cycle. Because we've done a lot of work digitizing specimens. We have a lot of data on GBIF, but we aren't sure if, how, or how much the research community is actually using those data. So we wanted to explore those issues a little bit and see what we could do to improve that situation. Is this the only slide I have? No. Okay. Could you go to the next
The
slide?
next one's just the list of people.
Okay. So this is who's involved in the project. These are all the people involved. So it's a collaborative project between University of Colorado, Smithsonian, and University of Kansas, specifically the Symbiota Support Hub. And through that arm of the project, we've developed a Symbiota portal that's specifically for smaller paleo collections because a lot of them have not been mobilized through NSF's EDBC project or big IMLS grants or whatever. So we've been doing a lot of community outreach to try and mobilize some of these smaller place-based collections that can be really important. So we've been doing that. We've also been developing the cyber infrastructure side for managing fossil data in Symbiota. So it's kind of a through line between what exists and then kind of what needs to get developed. And then on the other side of the project, the bigger ecosystem, we've been working with community partners such as Catalog of Life, GBIF, TDWG, the Paleo Data Working Group to sort of explore the questions more about what are the problems with sharing and using digitized fossil data. Anything else? Do we have the products?
No.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, I haven't actually seen these slides. So we have kind
You
of
go back, Ben.
Sorry. Yes.
sorry, I'm just going to talk
Oh.
for another second, Ben.
Oh, please.
I'm going to do a Ben
can't.
and keep talking.
I can't. Hold on. Oh, shit. Wrong. Okay. Hold on. Sorry.
Awesome.
You're doing
Thanks,
great,
Ben.
Ben.
So we kind of have three major products as part of the proposal. One of them is the Symbiota portal, which I mentioned. And if you know anybody that needs to get their data mobilized, please let us know. We can put you in touch with Lindsay and she can set up a meeting with them. The other two products are this Paleo Data Knowledge Hub that we've been working on as a place to share resources. And then the third product is what we're calling the Paleo Roadmap, which will be a list of suggestions, recommendations, things that are working, things that are not working, where we need to go from here, what needs to be done next, that sort of thing. So sort of a community guide to help us figure out what's next. I don't know if Erica and Holly want to say anything else about products.
I was just gonna add, I think as relevant to the ESP group in this meeting, part of what would be in that roadmap might be recommendations about terms we should consider for Darwin Core or for other standards within TDWG, and then we would bring that conversation through ESP. So that's part of why we're sharing this, is that we are doing work that will route through ESP as part of the TDWG process, including what we're going to talk about after we're done doing the sharing outs. And then also related to ESP, one of the things that we're going to have in that knowledge hub and as part of the roadmap evaluation work is a Darwin Core implementation guide for paleo collections. And that conversation has been going for a really long time. It started the first time the Paleo interest group, before it was ESP, met in 2016 at TDWG in Costa Rica. So we will finally have that guide hopefully ready soonish.
Cool. I'm done. That's all I wanted to say.
Before we move to the next item. Does anybody else have other
Oops.
projects or work going on that you'd like to talk about? Yeah, go ahead, Natalie.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Rea. I'm in the College of Information Science at the University of Arizona. This is my first ever TADWIG call. So thank you to Holly for calling out that these sessions were happening, flagging that for me a couple weeks ago. I am co-chair of the Earth Science Information Partners Physical Sample Curation Cluster. And I'll put a link in the chat for our webpage. There's also an ESIP Slack channel. I just wanted to flag that this is a group of a lot of earth science collections curators, as well as other federal agency earth science collections. And so we have kind of a group there. We meet once a month. We've worked on sample citation, best practices more recently, and we're kind of on the verge of switching over and looking for something new to dig into. But there's a lot of folks there that would be potential adopters of what's coming out of TADWIG with these extensions. And so looking forward to staying connected and figuring out ways. A lot of those folks will be, and which I include myself in, will need a lot of, I think, help to kind of figure out how to implement. But they, I think this community will be eager to see these approved recommended vocabularies and approved terms come out. So yeah, thanks.
You want me to read them? Think back.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. Let me share again. Thank you.
And we can add the link to the notes too, so we can share back with the people that were here last night or yesterday, depending on your time zone. Oh, go ahead, Valter.
Sorry, I didn't have, prepare anything. I just wanted to mention that with Disco we try to put more focus on paleo and geo collections. Currently, our open digital specimen specification focuses on what we commonly find in Darwin Core datasets. But if you think anything is missing there, or if you have datasets that you think would be worthwhile to add with priority, then yeah, please let me know, because we would be very interested in that. We have some difficulties to get feedback from the Paleo and Geo community because it's not very organized in Europe mainly. Yeah.
If you have specific stuff you would want to review and try to pull people together, we're happy to help with that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. We can either do that as an ESP meeting, or we could talk about it in that Paleo Data Working Group that Erica talked about.
Yeah,
Good.
I was just gonna say, like, either through ESP or Pedwig would be happy to do that.
Okay. Valter, I attend the CTAF meetings or sciences, and so I try to bring, you know what I mean, people over and coordinate, but it's tough, you know.
Something, Ben, did you have another thing you were going to show before this? I couldn't tell.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll show it.
One thing I thought, I was just thinking, I was curious who's going to Tadwig in person. Okay. For those of you that are on the fence, perhaps something we've been considering is the potential of finding some time to at least have a brief in-person working session for ESP. We haven't quite determined how it will fit with the schedule, but if that's something you think would be valuable and you're planning to go, it would help if you let us know that, so that we're not just the same tiny group meeting for another thing. Although we are very happy to do that, but we would love to have other people join us. Okay. If no one else has a report out, we will move to our activity for today.
Oh, whoops. Sorry.
Cool. I'm gonna start, but then Erica, if you want to jump in, you can. Um, something that we all have been, I think, thinking about in some form, but in particular, I know Ben's been working on this for geology, and Erica, Talia, and I have been working on this pretty extensively, largely as part of the two projects, the Paleo Data Working Group and the NSF grant project, is the new-ish within the last year Darwin core term of material entity type. And then some of the changes in the structure of the Darwin core data package and conceptual model, and how that can help us better describe what fossils are being represented in the records that we publish from paleo collections. So previously, the most records were published as a Darwin core archive, as an occurrence record, with a basis of record as fossil specimen. And that's how you would find records for fossils if you were looking in GBIF, for example. With the Darwin core data package, we have a shift in the model a bit where we will reframe those records largely as material entities, which gives us some new opportunities for better describing what those objects are. So not just saying it's a fossil specimen, but what kind of fossil specimen it is. The two terms that get at that are material entity category, which would be fossilized, and then this conversation that we're having now is, what is the vocabulary that we should have within material entity type? Next slide, please. So just as an example, or just as a review of where we are right now with material entity type, here are the definitions for those two terms. Material entity type essentially is a bit more of a specific classification than material entity category, which is fossilized, but more specific, less specific than some other terms like preparations. And we'll talk about some of the other related terms in a minute. And we see the values for this vocabulary as being pretty discipline specific. There are examples listed in the Darwin Core Quick Reference Guide currently. Those are shown here on the right. And I've highlighted the ones that are for fossils in yellow. Where we kind of landed with this is that those terms as they exist don't necessarily get at quite a granular enough level that we would need to communicate clearly what type of object you're actually referencing in a record. So this conversation that we've been having across various groups, and we would like feedback from this group on, is how granular do you need to be, and how should we actually be approaching this vocabulary to make it useful in a paleo context? And for our perspective, particularly when we're thinking about publishing fossil records for fossil specimens from collections. Next slide, please. So a couple of use cases for how we think material entity type could be used. And although we are talking about a Darwin core term, because the data is being sourced from a variety of data providers, we've talked a bit about how that information is useful on their end as well. So for example, for me, I have a field in my database called kind of object that we've never really utilized. And that's where we could be putting this type of vocabulary. So in a collection, you could imagine that having a more generic, but more specific than is just a fossil object term or vocabulary might be useful for planning workflows, planning physical organization, imaging, anything like that, because you would need different imaging techniques or different other digitization processes depending on what the type of object is that you're talking about. And then particularly of importance when we're talking about publishing and mobilizing fossil specimen data with Darwin Core and how someone might search in GBIF, we want to make sure that a researcher is able to identify the material that is most appropriate for their project or research question. If you go to the next slide, I think we will have a good example. Actually, can you go one more and then I'll come back to this? So as an example of this, in Darwin Core currently, if you were to publish a record for both of these objects, you would not know that one is amber and one is a slab with or compression fossil. So they would both appear as being one object with many individuals. And actually, you might not know it's one object with many individuals. It depends on how someone decides to publish their counts, and possibly with multiple species of insect. So you would know you have a fossil insect, but that's about it. Just as an example of where material entity type could start to help us better describe what these things are. Okay, now you can go back. Thank you.
Cool.
So these two terms are unique in being able to help describe what a record represents, what type of object a record represents. We also have the Darwin Core preparations term, but for those of you that might be familiar with that term, it often has many different concepts in it and gets used for many different things and doesn't have a clean vocabulary. It's also not often exposed for easy search. So using that as a way to filter specimens in GBIF is not ideal, particularly until some work is done to clean up what preparations is, and what types of values should end up there. We also, like I said, you can use things like organism quantity and organism quantity type to try to narrow down what the record represents as far as an object goes, but that would be dependent upon other fields as well.
Every time I open a window, it opens up in the wrong monitor. It's really frustrating.
It's okay. And
got it.
And then, of course, a taxonomic identification, the classic for filtering things down, but often not enough. Like if you were talking about those two fossil insects, just knowing it's an insect wouldn't be enough. Something that we use a lot in paleo collections is, and that's important, is having something for morphology or anatomy, but that's not currently available in Darwin Core as a term. John noted yesterday there's a related term in audiovisual core, but that isn't, I guess we could borrow it. But as it stands right now, there's not a term used in Darwin Core for sharing the parts of an object, which are very important in paleo collections since we often only have a part of an object, not a whole object. And then in Latimer Core, there's two terms for preservation method and preservation mode, which help to describe these things as well. But again, those are in Latimer Core, not Darwin Core. Next slide, and then the next slide since I already talked about that one. So for the vocabulary for material entity type, the way we have been approaching this is we think it's likely that we will need a hierarchical vocabulary with two concept levels. So one being a more formalized vocabulary at one level of granularity, and then having an option to have a more informal suggestive vocabulary for level 2 if you need to get more specific. Especially because the actual implementation of this is probably going to be quite challenging within individual collections if they even have a field to put that information. And with legacy records and being able to implement something, we think it is likely that at least the level 1 terms will be helpful. And then the level 2 ones can be a little bit more as needed. We've talked with a variety of collections people and a couple of researchers to get some feedback to get to where we are now, but this is by no means done. We definitely would like your input, and we have a document that we will share, I think, briefly we will definitely share it. We might show it briefly during this meeting to gather your input on these level 1 terms. And then in the document, you will also see what our ideas are for the level 2 more specific concepts underneath those. Yeah, I think that's, our hope is to have at least a working vocabulary, I think by Tadwig, if not earlier. So we don't, like, you can keep talking about this kind of thing for a really long time, and we've been talking about it for a really long time. So we would like to get to a place where we actually have terms we can start using over the next few months.
Excellent.
Erica, do you want to add anything? Sorry, I didn't leave space for you to jump in very easily.
No, that's fine. I think that's good. And I think let's go to the compound specimen and then we can come back to this. Yeah.
Okay.
We can skip them. Let's just keep going with
No,
full
no,
stuff.
no.
But
Done.
we,
The
this our
compound
science
specimen's
is a
related.
video. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the compound specimen model, one object, many things. Each thing has a type. And so that type would be into material type material entity category, depending, but that's where you would probably associate it with it. So each fossil within a slab or something. And that's how it sort of fits. And this is part of the geological collections conceptual data model, or the GCDM paper that's coming out soon. It's under review, and I have a lot of reviewers. I didn't realize what it meant to have a lot of, like, 8 reviewers. What would happen? It's a lot of reconciliation, but at any rate, that's where it fits in the compound model. And then there is support for the compound model in Darwin Core DB and Darwin Core. So there's this new thing called is part of material in CID, and you have, this is a simplified view, you have a compound specimen, Talmuddin schist, that's the name, 2 parts, and they relate to it through a self join. So the one and the one and the one. So if something doesn't have a parent, it's assumed a specimen, and if it does, it's assumed to be a part. So it's good. Was that it?
I think it would be helpful
Okay.
to show your vocabulary thing too.
Okay, cool. All right. So just this week, I finally got this thing launched. This is it. So it's got glossaries and control vocabularies. I won't go dive into this too much. These are some of the vocabularies we did as part of the Mineralogy extension. I think there are 4 more that I need to publish. There's a couple here. The one pertains to the current discussion is geological specimen material type. This vocabulary is based on some larger ones that deal with the whole geosciences domain, but this is strictly within the context of a collection. Because you could say a meteorite is a rock, because it certainly is, but meteorites and rocks are rarely put in the same collection. They're separate. The same thing with minerals, same thing with ores. Ores is an odd one, but they are in separate collections, so they're separated here. But this is where this comes in. So we have these vocabularies. This is available now. Gemstones, you're welcome to explore this unconsolidated. There are a few things missing. I just literally got it up 2 days ago. I need to put the mappings in there to existing vocabularies, but it's generally there. There's glossaries too. There'll be a geology glossary coming very soon. I just got to put it in there. Yeah. So you guys, you want to take it?
Yeah.
I'll do the document.
I guess we could show the document real quick, or we could just jump into any discussion or initial thoughts that people might have. Erica did share a link for the feedback document in the chat.
Yeah, and then you can stop sharing your screen. People can just open that on their own. But I just wanted to call out, I think, both Paul and Wouter shared the similar need and solution from different communities. So it feels like we're all on the same page that we need something like this that's like a little bit more granular than it's a fossil, but less granular than it's prepared this way. It has these morphological elements. So I guess the main thing that I wanted to add to what Holly said is just to reiterate that we see this vocabulary for material entity type as being a very curatorial thing. Like, you as the collections manager or curator are making a decision based on your knowledge of the collection about what the best way to like call this thing. And that decision is going to help researchers find your specimens if that data is on GBIF, or it's going to help you physically manage your collection. So it's a little bit different than some other controlled vocabularies where like we could, write a set of rules that, tell you from start A to the finish how you should label something. This is really much more curatorial. But yeah, I think we can open it up if people have thoughts about material entity type that they would like to share, or anything else that they want to bring up with this group of folks. Yeah, Wouter.
Yeah, maybe I can mention, but Ben knows it already. In this code, we make a distinction between specimens and specimen parts. And I think that's exactly the same as what you try to achieve with compound type.
Yeah.
The only issue is that we don't have any data sets yet that share data with specimen parts, because basically it's not really possible with current Darwin Core archives. So we are waiting for the Darwin Core data packages to be able to have that kind of data.
It's an interesting problem. So none collection management systems really support the compound model because
Yeah.
biology doesn't really have it. So people aren't, they need it. Everybody wants it. Everybody I talk to wants it, but nobody can really do it yet. And so we're putting together the geoportal thing. I won't get into too much, but building one in Switzerland, and a lot of the data that's going to come in is not divided up, but needs to be. So it's like this snowball effect. Now the model is present. You can start doing it. So how long will it take people to start rolling their data in, and can we do it? Can I put in procedures that make that automatic to some degree, at least split existing records into parts, which would be great. And I've got some things, but it's tough.
All of this I feel like is going to benefit through a few rounds of iteration too, right? Like Arctos and probably MCZ based can capture like the concept of the compound specimen, but at least in Arctos you could do it in two different ways depending on things, and people are not necessarily doing things in a consistent way. And so I think the Darwin Core data package as a publishing mechanism is going to help us get aligned and then go back and refine the collections management side of things. And then, I think some of the other systems, we're the collections management systems, we need to kind of speed up the development cycles on new stuff.
I have a diagram that shows, I took it from Naturalis, and the number of specimens that are part of biology collections, the number of specimens in geology collections. And I told Josh I wouldn't show it again because it's really small. And it requires a lot of times changing the fundamental data model of your entire application to have parts. And that's a big ask. And so totally understandable why people are hesitant to adopt it. And so if there's a way after the fact, EMU can sort of do it, but even EMU has tough time sort of, doing that kind of stuff,
We're testing it. Well, we're doing it. It's not maybe the ideal version of doing it, but we've got a model that works.
Yeah, Sharon makes a really good point that if you have cultural collections, you definitely deal with this.
Yeah. In a substantial major way. It's why, if I thought geology wasn't well supported by these databases, anthropology, having gone through a couple of those collections, is like, you guys are really not supportive. not even
Just
close.
I want to highlight Paul's comment too in the chat that this is not just a paleo problem. Like biological collections have this problem too, and I don't maybe it's just not recognized, or I don't know how they deal with it. So
Yeah, but it's much rarer there.
Like barnacles on a sea turtle. That's the example I used. That you have these things that are attached to physical attachment. It's two species. They're together. Who gets the specimen? Herpetology or invertebrates.
And neontological collections, I think, from my very limited experience with a couple of proposals that would put in, this is just starting to get dealt with there as well. What do I want to say? Epibionts are a great example that you guys just brought up, right? Usually just one thing or the other is cataloged and they're not both cataloged. So we're missing a lot of data and information and collections. We're missing not only that there's two things there, two organisms there, but we're also missing that relationship information. So
yeah, it feels like this is an opportunity where it's a much bigger problem in our domains. If we can solve it, it really does bring a benefit to the broader biodiversity community.
I will say something interesting about the different collection types. I have in this paper, I have an example about sea turtles and barnacles, and none of the geologists knew what I was talking about. I had to put a picture in there. And so it's even communities, different communities, the biologists that's just naturally probably the picture in your head comes to light very quickly. But for the geologists, it didn't. I had to actually show a picture of what I meant by this, turtle species and barnacle species.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the talk about we have more capabilities lined up now for Darwin Core data package even than the collections themselves can populate. But I want to ask kind of the opposite question is whether we have accommodated all of the real use cases yet, or have you seen already things that we can anticipate needing to add or change in Darwin Core Data Package? Aside from what Ben talked about already with stuff from mineralogy extension.
I don't think yet we've identified anything, but the biggest one that we had when we were doing testing last summer, cores was the more complicated one for figuring out how to do it, but it wasn't impossible.
Uh-huh.
It's just that of all the complex things that we have, that's like one of the most complex.
And your group also brought up a more natural relationship directly to geological contexts from the material than via an event, which was a fantastic addition.
Yeah.
It's already in the conceptual model. So
Rock cores are a good one because you literally have like sections of different stratigraphic bed, formations in there. And they really are separate parts of a bigger object. Yeah, that
And
relationship to
rock,
material and geology context was pretty important.
yeah.
It's just absolutely essential. Yeah.
And rock, like I feel that the model is quite good, and the devil is going to be in implementation. And so, cores are a great example of like, I can guarantee that no one is storing that in a collections management system in a way that will be easy to be like, just include this in my Darwin Core data package export. So we're going to need some kind of translator level, IPT extension-y kind of thing that helps us get from our collections management system, from our physical collections to the collections management systems, to the IPT, to places like GBIF or anywhere you share it.
Yeah, Erica, that's a really good point because I think, I have a lot of microfossils from cores or from measured sections, and the way that we record those in our database is it's not easy and everybody's doing it differently.
Yeah. And the conceptual model for Darwin Core Data Package is really good. It's like, oh, that's how we should record it, but that isn't starting that way. And Natalie's bringing up a core thought, a meeting of U.S. Marine and lacustrine core curators this summer.
Yeah, they meet.
That could actually be a really cool.
Yeah, I'm
Go
happy
ahead.
to share additional details. They meet in person every other year. They also have a listserv, which I can share in the chat here too and put it in the notes. But they are organized around NOAA used to have their index to marine and lacustrine geological samples, the IMLGS, which was a front end data portal. It was decommissioned in May, and CSAR is kind of slowly taking over, supporting and re-putting up that data portal. But that was the main way that a lot of researchers were finding marine and lake cores, mostly in the US, but some global participants there too.
Thank you. That'd be great to connect more.
Natalie, I just had another thought too. When I was at GSA last year, I talked a little bit with the terrestrial core group and the deep ocean drilling core group. And that might be an interesting happy hour is to bring all the different core data managers together from those big projects because they have like decades of core data and some of them have fairly robust systems and online search systems and repositories for managing those core data.
Yes, and actually, that's interesting to hear about this GSA. I'm not familiar with that GSA based group, but this group that I'm referencing does contain like the IODP curators.
Yeah, sorry, I just meant the IODP curators. Like they had.
Oh, okay.
They
Yes,
had
it's
tables in the GSA exhibit area.
Oh
Is
yeah.
what I'm
So
talking
this
about.
group
Yeah,
is them plus more.
yeah.
There's also like Scripps, Woods Hole. There's
Cool.
4 NSF funded repositories, and then all the IODPs, the 3 IODP repositories. So they're all on this listserv, and they have this group. The group doesn't have a formal digital presence beyond the listserv, but they've been around since I think the late 70s is kind of when that group formed. I'll drop some info in the chat.
Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole with cores because I found out I have calcareous nanoplankton from IODP cores that I may or may not, anybody may or may not know that we actually have at CU. So just trying to figure out how to connect with them.
And Voucher mentioned that 2 separate tables in Disco. I've done it both. I keep being told that people are going to want parts of parts. I'm not so sure. You know, I really,
I think it makes it really complicated,
it,
and
I'm,
I'm not
you know,
seeing the clear benefit.
yeah. But you could get down to elements, if you want to see like individual, how much oxygen and carbon. It's not.
We let people have parts of parts in Arctos, and it's just endlessly maybe not a great idea. Maybe you should just catalog something else.
Yeah.
We
Well,
just have a couple minutes left. Holly, go ahead.
I was gonna say
Probably
the same thing.
our little timekeeper brains are going. We just have a few minutes left. So any last thoughts from the group? Anything you want to share or comments?
Just in case anybody joined after the last time I put it in the chat, I'm putting the note document back in the chat one more time. If you want to be on the distribution list for this interest group, you can add your email to your name. If you don't, or if you know you're already on the distribution list, you can just put your name. And we will send out this material entity type conversation. / also maybe have some discussion in Slack is probably a good offline space. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Maybe we will see some of you in more meetings soon.
Oh, and we plan to do these quarterly, right, Holly? That we're going to do these ESP meetings.
Yes,
Okay, biannually or quarterly. We'll try.
maybe.
We'll try.
We aim for quarterly.
Lofty goals. Yeah,
Yeah. We met in December. We're not that far off.
that's true. That's very true.
Thanks, Ben and Holly, for convening. See you all.
Bye.
Let's have some. Bye.
Bye, guys.